honestly neglect in my garden. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. If you are new here, today I am giving you a growing update. We used to be really good about doing these weekly, but we've kind of missed the ball on that. You might have heard, but our sprinklers just shut off in the greenhouse. So I wanted to show you how everything's doing in here. We've got our carrots in this bed here, and honestly, we don't come in here much anymore since the sprinklers are doing the watering for us. We do have a couple carrots that went to seed. We moved back our shade cloth a little bit, so they're getting maybe a little bit more sun than they would like, but they're still growing and doing well, and we'll be ready to harvest before we know it. As far as our spinach, most of it went to seed, so we haven't been eating a ton of that. Our baby spinach is doing better than our Norfolk spinach, so this at least is at an eating stage right next to the kale that also looks pretty good, and this giant weed. So I was hopeful planting onions in here that they would do well, but they just kind of sat in limbo. I think it's too much shade for the onion. The shade is working well for our turnips and radishes. They are doing well. Can you see them down there? Oops, I think I broke a leaf right here. Our onion bed out here has seen better days. I have not been on top of weeding it, so our onions are hidden. Our leeks, though, are weeded pretty well. They look great, and this broccoli is doing well. Some of it, like, I'll probably come out and pick this one today. As you can see, it's kind of, oops, can you see it? It's kind of coming up. It's got to be picked. So down by our garden, in the front here, we've got these onions. Now, these ones have not had nearly as many weeds, and we've been a little better about weeding them. I think when the chickens are right there and they're not on grass this year, we feel a little more guilty and we're throwing them weeds all the time. But right next to this hyssop plant, these onions are doing so well that we planted right in the bed. The ones where we made like a little mound of dirt, they're not doing quite as well. I noticed with these, like a lot of them were just barely in. So I don't know if I always barely plant onions in, but if because of the mound they're kind of up higher, maybe more exposed to the elements, they're doing fine. Just a little bit smaller and a few more have tipped over and things. Our second year onions are flowering, so we'll have some seed for next year. So our cucumber plants are starting to climb up the trellis, which is always just one of my favorite things. And if you guys have been watching us for a while, you know that we've been having problems on and off every year with cucumber beetles. I found one this year. Part of that might be because I'm just not out here when they're out here, but so far the plants are looking pretty good. And our cucumber's biggest one is probably about the size of my longest finger. Most people around us are starting to get cucumbers, but being we planted them so late and planted from seed, I'm just very proud of where they're at. Along with the cucumbers on here, we did plant some red Malabar spinach to come up. I think more than anything, the red Malabar spinach made me feel good if we lose our cucumbers, that at least something would be growing on here. Now, we did just start eating it a little bit here and there. I think it's going to be the perfect addition to salad, or to maybe salads, but sandwiches. We were warned by a couple of you that like it was going to be such a strong flavor, and I would say yes, it is very flavorful, but I was expecting it to taste a little bitter, kind of like a lettuce that had been grown out in the heat, and it doesn't. It just has this strong flavor, and I think all the kids who tried it liked it. So our green beans, that plant that our daughter got from her kindergarten class, it has been in beans forever. I can see there's some really big ones on here again. And then our green beans, we just had the first picking off of them maybe 2 days ago. So you can see we have a lot of bug damage on these beans, which is interesting because these are the ones by the chickens and they have the most bug damage. The ones hidden under here, not so much. We harvested most of our cabbage and made that batch of sauerkraut, but these heads are small but ready. So I'll probably be harvesting them as well. Last week or so, I'd say we've been cutting broccoli off. We had a week where we had about 100-degree temperatures, and that week I was out here every day just cutting heads that you could tell they were going to start flowering if I didn't. There's a couple little ones left out here, but most of our broccoli that's left is up in the bed in front. I'm not sure if you can see back here because it is basically a jungle. So this whole area back here, this is where our chickens were. You can see a big sunflower maybe drooped over back there. Move back over, I'm trying to show them. But this is where all those squash came up. So last winter we got just garbage barrels of squash from a friend to feed our pigs. And evidently they didn't eat all the seeds. So we have squash growing everywhere. A few made it into the garden. There's one right here. One right here. And what's funny is they're all varieties. And the kids had to go pick one the other day. Right here, you can see these ones here. They went and picked one of those because they were convinced they were pumpkins. So I looked at them and I'm like, no, I think it's still like a squash, but definitely one that could be a pumpkin. So no, we're not planning on picking them right now. It's way too early. But if nothing else, they're going to make really great storage for the animals. And the animals are going to love going in there and eating down those plants as well. Along with those squash volunteers in our garden, we got a lot of tomato plant volunteers. Now, you guys might remember, but this whole area was just full of tomato plants. So I dug up a lot of them and replanted them. Figured they're here, might as well plant them. But every so often, I keep coming across another volunteer tomato plant. So like this one here is kind of hidden because it's between my broccoli and this big squash plant. But it looks like it's going to be cherry tomatoes. So, exciting find. Got another one over here on the trellis. Now, under this volunteer squash are our best producing pepper plants. You guys tell me why this is. We've got flowers on the plants under this squash that's getting shade and a lot more cool because I thought peppers liked heat. So all of our peppers that are in the heat of the garden, they're just not doing as well as they do most years. We definitely don't have any peppers yet. These are just starting to get like little flowers, but the only ones with actual flowers and like you can see peppers might be coming is these ones hidden in the shade. All right, then down here I planted a zucchini. I planted the regular dark green variety we always plant, and then I planted, I think it was like a gray zucchini variety, and we have our first zucchini. I thought I saw pumpkin. Oh, you guys, I'm losing it. There's no pumpkin, it was a leaf. We have our first gray zucchini on our plant, and I wanted to pick it the other day, but the kids were like, no, you have to make zucchini bread. So I'm leaving it because I like to wait for zucchini bread. Not wait, but those zucchinis that get out of control and get really big, those are the ones I use for zucchini bread. I just take the seeds out of them. More volunteer tomatoes. Just randomly in the garden with no support. As far as our tomatoes go, there was about a 3-week period between this garden is done being planted and me coming out here at all. So we had tomatoes on the ground. I honestly thought it was going to be a complete loss. It was just unsalvageable. I was kind of defeated that day. And I know I posted over on Instagram, but I don't often post on there. And I had just this little chunk of time. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out and do what I can do. And I clipped up as many tomatoes as I could. I set a timer. And I was clipping them up. And I was getting more upset as I was going because they just looked awful. And I barely got into pruning leaves that needed to come off. I haven't been doing pruning. And I was just so defeated by it all. And my timer went off. And there were just like a handful of plants left. And I wanted to walk away and just leave those ones laying on the ground because that was all the time I had. And I was like, just clip them up. It'll only take a couple minutes. And when I went to clip them up, lo and behold, in the very last one was a bright red tomato. And it was just the strangest thing because none of my tomatoes are even blushing. We've only had cherry tomatoes since. But there was just this bright red tomato sitting there, like, reminding me that, like, it's okay. Like, even though I didn't get to this for so long, it's okay. And it felt so awesome to see that. And it just completely changed my mood with my garden this year. Because I've been busy and I haven't been able to devote as much time to it as I want. So as you can see, the tomatoes are mostly clipped up. We can kind of see our walkway is obstructed a little bit by tomatoes. Part of this is just me not getting back out here, but also they grew down on the ground for so long. So that is kind of the direction they're trying to go. But really, tomatoes are doing well considering how little time I've put into them. And we have been picking cherry tomatoes. Now it's off a cherry tomato plant that somehow got planted in the back here. Looking at you, Matt. But just awesome to be in some tomatoes and know that they're coming. So anyways, the garden's always kind of just leaving those little surprises. And it's just been nice slowly bringing in harvest now that we're getting to that season. Especially after a summer of busy and honestly neglect in my garden. So the celery, super tiny. Some of it doing well, some of it just not doing anything, not good or bad. So we'll just see. I've got all season to worry about that. Some of these celery plants under the tree look better than others, so I don't know if that's the shade. And of course, I can't quite figure out exactly with my beans. I planted kidney beans and black-eyed peas, which are which. But the kidney beans and the black-eyed peas both, I want to wait till they dry out. So I did find these in here. They kind of look like peas. One of the kids actually picked one and we were eating it fresh just to try it. And it tasted a lot like a pea. So I'm guessing black-eyed peas. And then I've got some bean plants in a row here that I honestly didn't realize are bean plants, and I picked 4 like as weeds and gave them to the chickens one day. And then I was like looking and I'm like, oh, I bet those are the kidney beans. So they just looked a little bit different than my green bean plants and something new I was trying. So I'm not gonna pick any more of those plants. We'll just let those dry out. I never got in another round of green beans, which is kind of disappointing. We really love, Matt and I love canned green beans, but the kids aren't huge fans. So I think this summer I'm going to blanch most of my beans and freeze them. And honestly, for the sake of time, green beans really don't take that much time as far as canning goes, but as far as time and just energy I want to put in, I think that's what's going to happen with our green beans. And then we will have those for the rest of the year. We do have quite a few of canned green beans left from last year since our kids don't really like it. Dill is doing well. I've harvested dill that's in my way, and if I needed it or wanted it for something, but a lot of my dill is going to seed, so I think I'm going to be covered in dill seed. And I do use a lot of dill weed when I am cooking, but I don't use a lot of dill seed, so I probably should be picking more at the weed stage. Yeah, so here where our garlic was planted, I didn't get a second round of beans in, and I think I'm getting to the point where I might not get beans if I haven't gotten them in time to for sure get beans. We're here in Minnesota, Zone 4B, so our season is kind of short. But there is a chance I plant them and get beans off of them, and that would be awesome. And even if I didn't, I think it would be really good for the soil. So I might just throw some beans in if I have time, just for that sake. But right now I'm just survival, not thriving mode, and that's okay. Like, it's a season of life. So coming out to the garden and finding little things like this to surprise me when I'm not able to focus a ton on here has been nice. Strawberries, getting lots of flowers for a second harvest, which is exciting. And then our raspberries, they never stop. Those things are just still full. Wild black raspberries, the kids stopped picking a few weeks ago. So we're down to just the regular raspberries, which they are so over picking them, but I keep telling them you're gonna love having them this winter out of the freezers, so try to keep it up. Anyways, that's what's growing around here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear how your gardens are doing. Glad you got to see me again. Bye.